Okay, welcome to this week for tutorial, and this week we are using regression analysis to look at relationship between two variables, and we are gonna probably do this in two parts. I want to remind you of the relationship that exists between two variables is given by that formula. Really, what this is, if you were to plot values and end up with a line, x values here would be the values that are the independent variable, and these can be used to forecast what your variables on this side are going to be, and the equation is given there. B naught represents the intercept, and if you look at this equation, if you put x equals 0, then y becomes equal to b naught, because this part of the equation works out to be 0 if x is 0. So along the y-axis, that is when x is 0. So this point would be your value for b naught. What does b1 represent? b1 represents the gradient, which is the ratio of the average increase in y divided by the average increase in x. And we are going to need to have this type of background in mind to be able to explain a couple of the responses, which is why I stopped to do this. So it's gonna be a little long, but it's gonna be worth looking at. So we are asked to find the slope. If you click on this icon in My Stats tab, it allows you to copy to clipboard, and then you can literally paste the data. So this is the data in Excel, and we are going to use data analysis toolpack to calculate the values for B1 and B0. If you hit on the data tab, if you're not already there, data analysis, if activated, will be here. Regression, you go through the list and select regression and click OK. This box may populate with variables inputted here, but you want to make sure you double check that, because this is probably remnants from your last use of this part. So let me remove it to show you how we build this. The y values is going to be your price. Remember that the capacity is what we're using as the input to drive the price. So we're going to highlight this, and I've included the label for x, going to be the capacity, and I'm going to tell Excel that I've included the label. Next thing I want to move on to is the output range, to tell Excel, hey, provide the data and put the first cell in this box here, and then it will populate around that. A lot of the other things, there are other places you could do it and other results you could ask for, but for now this is going to be enough. This result that shows here in this table brings a lot of other results that will make more sense to you when you're further on in the course. But for today, the two values we're interested in are the ones highlighted here. So this is the intercept, which is going to be your B0 value, and this is going to be your B1 value. Alright, so you can essentially get those from the regression analysis. So B1, I'm sorry, would be here, and jumping a little bit ahead to put in the value for B0, which would be your intercept, which would be here. Clearly, you want to follow the stipulated amount of decimal places you're asked for. Like this one here, you would have to reduce it. You can do it in Excel or you can do it manually. You certainly want to be able to do it manually. Now looking at part B, what does it mean? What is the meaning of B1? Now if we come back to our lovely confusing graph here, remember what the gradient of the graph is. On this y-axis we're going to have price, and on this we're going to have the size. And if we were to show a part of the graph, this would be y and this would be x. And remember that by definition the gradient is the change in y over the change in x. What does that mean? That means a change in y is a change in price, and you're dividing by a change in size. So what this is providing, the value for B1 really is going to be price per unit size. So what this essentially is going to say to you is the gradient B1 is the increase in price for increase of 1 terabyte, which is what the unit is. So bringing it to what the problem is all about, the gradient is going to be, if you increase the value of x by 1 unit, what is the expected growth in the price? And for that it's going to be 107.69, which essentially is saying that if you jump from a 1 to a 2, you're going up by this much. You jump from a 2 to a 3, or a 2.5 to a 3.5, you're going up by this much. As long as you increase the size by 1 terabyte, then you're going to have an increase in the price. That is 107.69, and that is going to be constant. Alright, the next thing we want to look at is B0. What does this really represent, and is it significant? And if we went back to our graph, remember that for this graph what we have is price versus size of the drive, and this is going to be our B0. Now what B0 really is, if you recall this equation, and this really should be B1x. Whenever x is equal to 0, this expression becomes 0, so that's y is equal to B0. So what we're saying, if the size drive is 0, then the price is going to be equal to B0. Practically, does that make sense? If the size of a drive is 0, then we really don't have a drive. So in this case it's not very meaningful. However, in other cases it can be super meaningful. I'm gonna pause there, and then we will continue this problem in part 2. Thank you.